In our Eye on the Prize segment tonight, we are now in October. That means we're just, well, less than a month away from the 2022 election day. It's midterms, and the prize that we have our eye on, well, that would be a majority in the House and in the Senate for the Republican Party. And if that majority is to happen in the Senate, well, we got to win in states like Pennsylvania. What's happening in that extraordinary race? We turn to our friend Chris Stigall. He's the host of the Chris Stigall Show on Salem's own AM 990, The Answer in Philadelphia. Also, his podcast is a must-listen every day, Chris Stigall Show podcast. Chris, thanks for joining us on O'Connor Tonight.
Larry, congratulations on the new show. It looks fantastic. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it. So seriously, what the heck is going on in Pennsylvania? This is the strangest Senate race in the country, is it not? Give us an update on who these candidates are and what's currently happening.
Yeah, it has been a weird one. Those of you that have followed it, the Cliff Notes version is a very contested primary, a three-way primary that was very ugly and very, very tight. Ultimately, the Trump-endorsed candidate, Dr. Oz, that most people know from television, the TV doctor, he wins it by a squeaker. And as such, his biggest problem has been consolidating a base of support around him. I think it's getting better as we get closer to the election. On the other side is the lieutenant governor of the last 7+ years, John Fetterman, who had a massive stroke in the spring just before he won the Democrat primary, and inexplicably hid from view for about 4 months. When he finally surfaced, he could barely communicate, he could barely speak, he doesn't give interviews, he won't do debates, and somehow he's dead even with Dr. Oz in the polls as we close in 1 month to go.
Yeah, and the fact that early voting is already, it's so cynical. It's so cynical. Yeah, well, everybody vote now and then we'll debate later. But I mean, let's face it, there's no closed captioning, there's no rehearsals, there's no do-overs in the United States Senate. This is kind of a big office he wants. You know, a lot of us look at what happened with Joe Biden. We look at Dr. Joe Biden, the First Lady, sort of carting him around and passing him from person to person, telling him where to go and who he's talking to. We just saw him think that a dead person was at an event, Representative Jackie Walorski. It's hard sometimes not to feel some sympathy for the man, just let him age gracefully. Is Fetterman sort of drawing on that, where it's like, oh, well, he's wounded, he's injured, you know, maybe we should cut him some slack?
There is obviously an element of that where he's trying to play on people's sympathies, I guess. The thing is, John Fetterman's not a sympathetic figure, Larry. I mean, this is a guy, he's a really repugnant human being. He's an Ivy League silver spoon trust fund brat. He's never had a job in his life, literally, until he became lieutenant governor of Pennsylvania. He's sponged off of his family. The place he lives was paid for by his family. His Harvard education was paid for by his family. His first honest-to-goodness adult living was lieutenant governor. He sends his kids, this is the most amazing thing, he sends his kids to private school, a $32K a year school.
Wow.
While he, of course, opposes school choice for Pennsylvanians in failing districts like Philadelphia.
You'd think with all that money and all that education, he could get a new hoodie, but I guess, you know, who am I to judge? I know.
I also hate to bring up the fact that that hoodie we've now seen seems to be covering what is a really uncomfortable looking, I don't know what you want to call it, but it's, and I'm not one that goes in here on this thing, but I'm saying Fetter neck was trending for a while on Twitter.
There's something there. It's either a cyst or a growth, or, I mean, you remember that movie, How to Get Ahead in Business, I think it was? Or, yeah, that's, anyway. Thankfully, the race is actually, it seems now, getting down to some very important issues. Two very important ones. Let's start first with violent crime. And we're talking about Pennsylvania, which means we're talking about Philadelphia and even Pittsburgh, where we've got serious violent crime in those two cities. But even more importantly, it's out in the suburbs of those cities as well. And Fetterman is on record, and he keeps doubling down on this asinine notion that if he could wave a magic wand, he would release 30% of all convicted criminals and just put them out on the streets?
That's right. He heard some progressive seminar where he was really enlightened that releasing a third of the prison population would be great for business in Pennsylvania. He was sincerely enlightened by the concept. The FOP in Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia specifically, is so turned off by Fetterman. They've endorsed Dr. Oz, which is kind of rare because that's not the case in the gubernatorial race. They endorsed the Democrat, but that's how excessive they see John Fetterman, that they've chosen the Republican candidate over the Democrat. Not common for a union shop.
Yeah, that's the thing. A lot of people think FOP, well, it's the cops, of course, so they're going to go with law and order Republicans. In big cities, very rarely, actually, especially in a historically union state like Pennsylvania, it's a union play. It's a pension payout play. It's not a cops on the streets play. So you're right. I mean, that's a commentary, not just where Fetterman is, but let's face it, where the Black Lives Matters defund the police Democrat Party is right now.
Yes, and I'll tell you that Dr. Oz did something I've never seen any modern-day candidate do, and I really do give him credit for this. He went into easily the most dangerous, depraved, depressing section of Philadelphia there is, Kensington. You've probably seen the viral video footage over the months and years of this place, this part of town where people, it looks like a zombie apocalypse. Drug addicts, needles in the streets, just wandering. It's a sea of humanity. It's so depressing. Oz actually went into that neighborhood, physically drove, he and his campaign went in, talked with people, aided 3 people into a rehab clinic.
Wow.
Was actually listening and talking to these people in his car, you know, as they were coming up to the window asking for help. I haven't seen Democrat, Republican, anybody do that ever.
Wow.
So that's the kind of thing Oz is doing, substantive discussion about the real problems that we're having, while Fetterman continues to tease him about things like, yeah, he's from New Jersey, and he says elitist things like crudité.
Yeah.
We got bigger problems than vegetable trays, folks.
Yeah, it's true, although I have to admit, maybe it's because I grew up in California most of my life. I've always called it crudité. Why is that elitist all of a sudden? Am I an elitist, Chris? Wait, don't answer that.
Well, you are, and I've never used that word either, but we have bigger fish to fry is the point, elitist.
Really fast here. As this is tightening, and it is tightening, and as we see this get down to the wire, should Oz Mehmet actually win this Senate race? I got to ask you, because you've been watching this, Chris. You're the morning guy for us in Philadelphia. Can we trust him? I mean, honestly, I know that he's Trump endorsed, but that doesn't always mean this is going to be like a conservative Republican vote in the United States Senate. And he's Oprah's doctor, Chris. Can we trust him if he does win?
Look, I'm enthusiastically backing him. I will vote for him. I promised that. I stayed out of this primary race. It wasn't my pick in the primary, to be candid, but I back him. I support him. Can we trust him? Pat Toomey also had my vote and then voted to impeach Donald Trump. So what can I tell you about Pennsylvania Republicans? They're odd. They are often unreliable. It's a very frustrating phenomenon in our state. But this and Oz is running a Mitt Romney kind of strategy with us in media right now, those of us in conservative media. Romney did this in 2012.
Yeah.
We were useful until the nomination, and then they went radio silent. So Oz not really excited to come on shows like mine. I get it. He's trying to make a play for people that aren't me, and boy, if you don't excite your own base, that's a little worrisome.
Yeah, and the last person to win statewide, Commonwealth-wide in Pennsylvania was Donald Trump, and he did not use a Romney strategy there at all. We will be watching it.
He won't leave the show.
Right, exactly. That's all right. We gotta go to traffic now, Mr. President. Yeah. Chris Stigall, you are an invaluable voice there in Pennsylvania, and as we keep our eye on the prize leading up to the midterm election, we're going to be keeping our eye on you and looking at it through your eyes there in Pennsylvania. Thanks so much for your insight here today.
I'm always here for you, Lair. Good to see you.
More to come on O'Connor Tonight.